I'm Lisa Merle, and welcome to Another View. As a holistic health counselor, I work with my clients to help them achieve their own personal vision of wellness. Now, this doesn't just involve their food choices that they make, but it also involves other lifestyle types of issues. That can be exercise, career choice, and the quality of their relationships. Because when you get down to it, even though you may be eating the best way that you can, if these other areas are out of balance in your life, then you really can't achieve true personal wellness. And so, on Another View, we'll be exploring a wide range of topics concerning food and lifestyle issues. Today, we'll be discussing understanding your personality type. And joining us today is Iris First. Iris is a relations coach currently in private practice in Armonk, New York, where she sees clients, leads group workshops, and conducts national and international telephone sessions. Iris was a frequent guest speaker on WBAI 99.5 FM's The Positive Mind with Armand DeMille, in addition to her psychotherapy practice at the DeMille Center for Psychotherapy located in New York City. Welcome, Iris, and thank you very much for joining me here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, Iris, to begin at the beginning, exactly what is a relations coach, and how is that different from being a psychotherapist?
Well, like you had mentioned, I had a psychotherapy practice in the city at the DeMille Center, and one day I was taking a look at what is it that I actually do. And I was thinking about what is the difference between a psychotherapy and a relations coach. And I incorporate the psychotherapeutic paradigms like the Gestalt therapy, psychoanalytic theory, psychodynamic theories, humanism. And yet what I add to it is non-traditional paradigms, such as the Enneagram, which we'll be doing today, personality typing. I do intense feeling therapy. I do body sensing awareness. I have a more integrative approach. And when I was looking at this question of what is it that I actually do, what I do is I am a catalyst which allows people to powerfully relate to themselves and relate to others in the world around them. So sometimes we get stuck in those places, and that's what I do.
I'm really glad that you're discussing the Enneagram today. I took your workshop Discovering the Enneagram this past summer, and I was really impressed how it gave me enlightenment into my communication and knowing my personality types and the others who are important in my life. Can you just give us a basic understanding, what is the Enneagram?
Sure, love to.
Okay.
One of my favorite topics. Okay, so the Enneagram is a psychospiritual system that has been traced back about 2,500 years to Babylonian times. So it's been around a lot longer than Myers-Briggs or Freud's, psychoanalytic theory. And basically, it's based on the premise that there are 9 different innate types. So we're born one of these types. And each type has a particular orientation to how they see the world. You could say the color glasses that they see the world through. And one of the things with people, what we do is we see the world a particular way, and somebody sees it a different way, and all of a sudden they're wrong. So this system actually provides the ability to really not only get in touch with how is it that your view and your biases, but also to embrace other people's.
Right. And now that our viewers have an understanding of what it is, you brought this chart, and if you could just now give us an idea of what each of these different 9 types are and a little bit about them, so maybe we can begin to see where we all fit into.
Okay, well, that sounds great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a brief description of all the different types. So each type comes with a gift, an extraordinary gift, and the pitfalls, or another way to say it, the muscles that we have to exercise.
Right.
So over here is, you see, there's the type 1, the reformer. So the type 1, the reformer, can lead through integrity and reason or be hindered by perfectionism and resentment. The type 2, the helper, can shine with generosity and healing power or struggle with people-pleasing and possessiveness. The type 3, the achiever, can be an inspiring example of excellence and authenticity or blindly pursue success and status. Type 4, the individualist, can model creativity and intuitive power or be held back by moodiness and self-consciousness. The type 5, the investigator, can demonstrate visionary intellect and inventiveness or become increasingly eccentric and isolated. Type 6, the loyalist, can exemplify courage and commitment or struggle with anxiety and rebelliousness. Type 7, the enthusiast, can be highly accomplished and spirited or waylaid by impulsiveness and impatience. Type 8, the challenger, can be a powerful, magnanimous leader or control and intimidate others. And type 9, the peacemaker, can bring people together and heal conflicts or be held back by passivity and stubbornness. And Lisa, I was thinking what might be interesting for the audience, for your viewers, is to give an example of a famous person who are the different types.
Definitely.
So type 1, the reformer, you have Gandhi, you have Ralph Nader. So you see they're out to reform and make a difference in the world. The type 2, the helper, you have Mother Teresa. So, you know, somebody,
The big
caretaker,
helper,
right?
yes.
Right, the ultimate caretaker, right?
Yes.
You have type 3, the achiever. You have Madonna. You have Tony Robbins. You have all these high-powered achievers. Type 4, the individualist. You have Johnny Depp. You have type 5, the investigator. You have Albert Einstein. You see the investigator. You have Charles Darwin. That type. Type 6, the loyalist. You have Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks, Julia Roberts. Type 7, the enthusiast. You have Robin Williams. You have Jack Nicholson. You have Jim Carrey. Type 8, the challenger. You have Martin Luther King. You also have Saddam Hussein.
Really?
So it depending on how you use the energy of these different types is basically, will you have the, you know, be demonstrating the gift or the pitfall. So, you know, it all depends on the level of health and your level of consciousness with it. Type 9, the peacemaker. You have Abraham Lincoln. You also have Walt Disney and Norman Rockwell. So you could see, like, this brings a little scale and relativity, like who would be what. And the people that I named, you could see actually.
I was just going to say, when you heard the name, it just sounded so apropos of how you were describing them and who we know in their public identity, how they come across. What I also would like very much is that when we also found out what our own individual type was, and we talked about the other people in our lives, what their types are, we started discussing incidents in terms of things that would go on, typical scenarios. And by understanding our types, we in our group, we began to see things differently. And so the confusing outcome of communications or situations became a lot clearer. And so I was hoping if you can come up with a scenario of, let's say, a mom with 2, 3 children. And as moms or dads are always asking their kids to do, have you done your homework? Have you cleaned your room? And how would that simple request be received by children who have different personality types?
That's a great question, and I always believe in why not make it user-friendly, right?
Exactly.
Now, enough of this theory. Let's have user-friendly. So let's say, for example, you have a type 2 mother who's the helper, the epitome of nurturance. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about these types. These types, each personality type, I'm going to use a couple of buzzwords.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what they mean. So they have a basic fear, a basic desire, and a superego message. And for those of you who are not sure what superego is, the superego is the internalized parent that tells us if we're good girl, bad girl. good boy, bad boy.
Okay.
Right? And each type has a particular specific superego message. So, like for the helper, their superego message is, I'm good or okay if I'm loved by people and close to them. They will have a different orientation of what runs them and what motivates them than any of the other types, whether they're a parent or whether they're a child. So their basic desire is to be admired and loved. Mm-hmm. Their basic fear is they're not going to be loved for themselves alone. So here you have a type that goes into a lot of people pleasing, and sometimes even like they want to help you, but you almost on the receiving end of it have like an over nurturance, like you're almost suffocating or they're overstepping a boundary when it's not in balance. So let's say we have a type 2 helper mother, we have a type 3 achiever child.
Okay.
We have a type 6 loyalist child, and we have a type 9 peacemaker child. So the achiever, their superego message, like how they get their merits or demerits by their internalized parent, right, by the superego, is I'm good or okay if I am the best and everybody thinks well of me. So admired, the best, and everyone thinks well of me. So their basic desire is to be admired. Mm-hmm. Their basic fear is that they will not have any value without their achievements. So here you have a very goal-oriented type.
Very driven.
Very driven. And then over here you have the loyalist. So you're having now a type 6, the loyalist child, whose superego message is, I'm good or okay if I do what's expected of me. So a lot of times you will notice if you have this child, they're good boys and good girls. It's what others expect of them, and it's also what their internalized parent expects of themselves, right? So they're good or okay if they do what's expected of them.
It almost sounds as though they don't need the external parent telling them to do something to be good, that they're doing it on their own.
Well, that's a good point. And when I go through all of this, I will definitely incorporate that, because I was actually going to say something about that. So that's great. It's great that you heard that. And their basic fear is of having no security or guidance, and their basic desire is to be safe. For the type 9, the peacemaker, their superego message is, I'm good or okay if everybody around me is good or okay. So let me tell you a little bit about that. The basic fear of this type is of separation and annihilation. So they, a lot of times, are the more withdrawn type that are the outside looking in. And so they're afraid that they're going to be cut off. That's like a deep-rooted fear for them. Their basic desire is to be at peace. They're okay being by themselves or being with people as long as nobody disturbs their peace. So this particular type tends to avoid confrontation. So, and now if you put that together with the superego message, right, I'm good okay if everyone around me is good or okay, you have to watch for this type to say yes when they really mean no, and then you see passive aggressive behavior coming out and anger coming out. So, okay, going back to your scenario.
Okay.
Type 2 helper mother looks at her type 3 achiever child in the area of doing your homework.
Right.
This child, if homework is one of the things where they get their value from, like doing well in school, she probably does not have to tell them this. Actually, this child will be so driven that they will have to do the best, and if they do not get all A's, they're going to beat themselves up. So sometimes this to watch out if you have a type 3 achiever child is to watch out that they're too hard on themselves, that they don't cut themselves any slack, because their whole egoic and identity survival is based on if they're the best. Otherwise they're worthless, right? So, but let's say this type 3 achiever child is more into sports. You may see it come out in that way, that they're going to be driven by the sports, and they may neglect their homework because they only want to do things that they're really going to win. They're really afraid of failure. Okay, so then you have type 2 mother saying the same thing to the loyalist. The loyalist is usually a very responsible, rational, organized type, and they want to be good. This type, you also have to worry about passive-aggressive anger.
Really?
Because they say yes and they comply to be good, except this type is actually what's true for them, the opposite is true. So they're looking for security and guidance,
yes.
But the other flip side of this type is if you pass a certain boundary, you push on their boundary, they get anti-authoritarian and don't tell me what to do. So, but generally speaking, they do what they need to do. Okay. You know, and I mean, they're kids, so they need a little guidance and sometimes a little kick in the butt, whatever type they are, right?
Right.
And then you have the peacemaker child.
Yes.
So the peacemaker child, and I happen to have one of those, a teenage one, the peacemaker, what will happen is the helper parent will say to the peacemaker child, did you do your homework? Now the peacemaker is, I'm good or okay if you don't disturb my peace, and you're good or okay. So you'll be good or okay if I say what you want to hear. So they're a little bit, dial 1-800, tell me what I want to hear.
Okay.
And you have to be mindful of that. They will say yes when they mean no, and then avoid the confrontation, or then maybe fall to like victim when, instead of being responsible for that they didn't keep their word when you hold them accountable to it.
Oh.
So, you know, like with my peacemaker child, from what was available from this Enneagram, and I am the 7, the enthusiast. So I usually like push, you know, I definitely disturb his peace. By nature, not just by being a parent. But so one of the things, and the joke between us, is when I ask him something and he says yes, I ask him, is that the right answer or is that the true answer?
Exactly.
And, you know, we smile and we have a little joke between us, and it really has helped in our ability to have a really empowering relationship. So
it sounds as though when the mom would say maybe to the peacemaker child, why aren't you like your other brother or sister? It's because in reality is that they're not the same, that they have a different basic orientation in life in terms of what's driving them and what's important to them.
Yes, absolutely. It is. And the thing is that I named some pretty amazing peacemakers,
yes.
right? So within each of the types, there, like I said, there's the gift, and then there's also there's the different levels of health. When they're operating on a healthier level, the peacemaker could be highly accomplished out of their love and their vision. They're very creative, very visionary of what they're doing. But with each of the types, there's actually from Catholicism, the deadly sins. There's a deadly sin that's affiliated with it. So with the peacemaker, the deadly sin is sloth. So you got to watch with them from being a little bit lazy. You know, for the achiever, their deadly sin is vanity and deceit. So they want to look good. You know, they always want to be seen great by the world, right? And they will even be a chameleon and be slightly deceitful to get the goals. They have to be mindful of that.
To be able to continue looking good.
Right, and to achieve whatever their goals are that are going to give them that. And then, so the type 6, the loyalist, is fear. So if you want to have a really empowering relationship with a type 6 child, you know, one of the things that you want them to do is to be able to get grounded in trusting themselves and speaking their truth, even though it might not be what's expected of them. And, you know, and then as parents, we always have to worry about our own manipulations of what we're projecting on them, you know.
Could you just briefly go into a little explanation as to what the lines signify within the circle that seem to be almost a way connecting each of the types?
Okay, great question. So, so the Enneagram, first of all, the word Enneagram comes from the Greek word Enneagram, which is Ennea is 9 and gram is diagram. So it's a diagram of 9. Now, the first thing that I really did want to say before I went into the descriptions, which I didn't, was that it is not better to be any of the types. It is equally an honor to be any of the types if you are operating on your healthiest level.
It's just
that's what you want to do.
It's just who you are.
Right. It's who you are. It's you know, what your the hand you were dealt in life, and it's like, and we also have all of the types in us. Because even though, the reformer has the virtue of will, like the actual willpower to make something happen, like Gandhi fasted for 40 days, just because, someone's an individualist, that doesn't mean that they don't have will.
Yes.
It's tapping into that part, but this is more a default mechanism and also innate for them. They have a greater access to it. So with each of the connections here, there is actually we have all of the types in us, and then there are places that we go under stress, and they're called a point of disintegration. And then the places that we go under relaxation, or when we're really comfortable with ourselves, it's the point of integration. So, like type 1, the reformer, when they disintegrate under stress, so here they are trying to do everything right, reform the world, walking around angry that life isn't fair because they're following the rules, but not everybody else is doing it. They're also known as the perfectionist. They're not meeting their own standards and ideals. Their superego is beating them up. They disintegrate to 4, to the unhealthier levels of the 4, where they start getting very moody and self-conscious and victim-y, melancholic, and want to escape. Right? Because this is a really doing type, right? So, but when the reformer is integrating and they're taking their gifts, they're not being so self-righteous about it and so rigid. They actually integrate and take on some of the characteristics of the enthusiast, which is, the joie de vivre, the joy of life, the spontaneity, the fun, the lightness. So imagine having the will to do what it is that you really believe in without your significance.
Now, we've spent some time, we've been talking about relationships with family members, but it seems as though this system really isn't just for interpersonal relations within our family. It can be applied in other situations. Can you just go into some other areas where it can really help improve our communication?
Oh, certainly. Well, significant other.
Well, that's our interpersonal, yes.
Right. In business, when you're working with colleagues, and sometimes, you have a meeting, you're working with a group of people, it's amazing to really know the dynamic, because when people start speaking, you could start listening from, when you become familiar with the system, you could start listening from what is their commitment and what is their concern. And this way you could actually deal with that, as opposed to dealing with their reactive behavior, because this system really gives you a laser insight into our reactive behavior and the reactive behavior of others.
So it sounds like it can be very helpful that if you're in a working situation, working in an office, and there happens to be just that one other employee that you just can't get along with, no matter how you try or what. And so in a way that it sounds as though by seeing how they act, you can kind of figure out what their type may be and then adjust how you may communicate with them.
Yes.
Try things differently instead of doing things the same way, kind of change it up a bit?
Yes, that's one part of it. And the other part of it, if there is this one employee that just gets on your last nerve, the first place, and part of the relations coaching that I do with it, is the first place to always look is with oneself. It's not, the way we were raised is, you pissed me off, you hurt my feelings.
Yes.
Actually, the way it actually is, and the most responsible and powerful place to come from, is you did what you did, or you said what you said, and I felt hurt. You said what you said, and I felt angry. This way, I'm owning my own reactive behavior. So if I were a 7, which I am, the enthusiast, and somebody was getting on my nerves, one of the things that would actually one of the things that I have to look out for, because part of the pitfalls is impatience and impulsivity. So what is going on? Am I getting frustrated, and am I superimposing my pace of doing things to another person and not honoring them? Iris,
we're coming to the end of our time together. Could you just briefly name, I know that you do other workshops besides the Enneagram, in terms of what other topics do you also deal with?
Yes. So another workshop that I do, so I do Unlock the Power of the Enneagram. I also do a workshop called The Art of Being a Clean Communicator, which I love this one. I love both of them, to tell you the truth. But this one, actually, I incorporate a lot of Harville Hendricks' work with mirroring, because I think that the greatest gift that we could ever give somebody, and especially someone we love, is our listening. And we don't listen because we're so busy listening to our responses and the commentary in our head. And why is it that sometimes we say something to someone and we get this reaction and we don't know where it came from? Because we had a cootie on it that we weren't aware of. So this workshop actually busts up the blind spots around the cooties, I would say.
So, Iris, thank you very much for joining me here today. For more information on Iris First, relations coaching, the Enneagram, and the other workshops that she offers, please visit her website at www.relations-coach.com. And that's the symbol dash, not the word dash. And then for any questions and comments on today's show and for information on holistic health counseling, you can contact me through my website, www.lisamerlewellness.com. Or if you wish, you can email me at lisaemerl@hotmail.com. And just remember to put Another View in the subject title. Again, Iris, thank you again for joining me today. And then to my viewers, till next time, remember, our lives are full of possibilities. We just need to be open for another view. Thank you.